Hello everybody and welcome back to the Crooked Hour. UFC first fight card of the year, Ankalaev vs Walker 2 just went down. We're going to be going over the card starting from the early prelims to the main event. Well, there was only prelims in this card. We're going to go up, have a little chat about each fight. So starting off, we had Joshua Van vs Felipe Boons. Now, I don't usually do research, but I did do a little research on this and I saw that Felipe Boons was really chinny and he was hittable. But he did pack power, and we did see that a little bit. Joshua Van, a slow first round starter. I thought this would be the fight where he sort of breaks out of that, but he didn't. Dropped the first round. Felipe Boons did start to slow. I'd like to see what this fight would have been like if Felipe Boons didn't slow and kept that pace up, kept going and kept going. But ultimately, that's not what happened. Joshua Van's looking good. I think it's his third win in a row in the UFC, or maybe fourth, and undefeated in the UFC too, I think. So he keeps on coming. Good output in this fight, except a little criticism is he's not as big of a finisher as I thought. He doesn't seem to pack as much power in his hands as I thought he did. And I think that showed this fight, although he's a good contender. I'd like to see how far he can go and what improvements he can make. But ultimately, great fight to start off the card. I enjoyed it. Next fight, man. Nicholas Motta versus Tom Nolan. I was big on Tom Nolan in the Contender Series. Man looked like a beast. And in this fight, he looked like a fucking bunny rabbit. Like, my problem with him in this fight was he was too cocky. You even seen in the little post-fight interviews they were showing up on the pre-fight interviews, I should say, where they were showing him up on the screen, and Tom Nolan saying, "Oh, just going to get him out there in the first round. Just going to get him out of there. This is going to be an easy fight, easy introduction into the UFC." And he fought like that. He looked sloppy as hell. He was leaving himself open all the time. Struggling to use his reach. He kept going into close range, and Nicholas Motta made him pay. Like, Tom Nolan didn't even really hurt him in this fight. Was chewing up the legs pretty well, but he didn't stick to that. He just kind of wanted to brawl, and Nicholas Motta is a dangerous guy to brawl against. So in the future, I think we're going to have to think about Tom Nolan's IQ, because it didn't look too good there. But after a loss, maybe he will improve. That's the first loss of his career too, so we'll see how he improves or how he doesn't improve. But that made me 1-1 starting off the card. Next up, Weston Wilson versus Gene Silva. Now this fight was funny, and we got an exciting fighter in Gene Silva. But Weston Wilson, like, with all due respect, he got bullied this fight. He looked like he had nothing. That's all it was. He was just getting bullied, and Gene Silva was sort of like playing with him. He'd knock him down, let him back up, knock him down. Weston Wilson just looked terrible, and Gene Silva just bullied him. Like, it was literally a beatdown. Like, and Gene Silva just bullied him. Weston Wilson probably deserves to be cut. Gene Silva, very exciting fighter coming up. I can't wait to see what he has. And he's made a fan out of me, so there you go. Next up, Farad Basharat versus Taylor Lapilus. Good fight. This was a pretty entertaining fight, pretty close fight, but Farad Basharat did win every single round. And he looks good while doing it. I mean, he couldn't really get his takedowns going, but I think that was more just because Taylor had great takedown defense. Like, if you look here, he hit 5 out of 16 takedowns. But he did get 6 minutes and 58 seconds of control time, which is good. He deserved to win, except I did see some holes in his game. But again, Taylor Lapilus isn't bad, not bad at all. So, you know, that might be one of his hardest tests. Of course, not in the whole division, but for a little while, he might get some more matchups that are easier than Taylor Lapilus. So, good fight. Yeah, not much more to say. I had Farad Basharat winning, and he won. Next up, Marcus McGee versus Gaston Baños. Yeah, that's just what I'm going to say. Good fight. Marcus McGee looks good again. Ends up KOing him. But up until that point, it was kind of a little bit close. Like, Gaston was hitting him at some times, but Marcus has a good chin. Marcus McGee looked great. Great boxing. Great takedowns. Very impressive. Definitely a fighter to look out for. 9-1. Gaston Baños didn't look horrible, but he ended up getting caught and finished by Marcus McGee. Ultimately, good fight. Marcus McGee, man to look out for over this next year. Gaston Baños, I think he did alright besides getting KO'd. Matthew Semmelsberger. I thought this was going to be a clear win for Matthew Semmelsberger, but he got dominated. Like, every round dominated. I just don't know what he was doing in this fight. Like, I know it's funny, I've never been in a fucking MMA fight. I don't know what it's like. But he needed that more of a kill switch on him this fight. He needed to go for it a little bit more. And that's the issue Matthew Semelsberger has in his career. I mean, he's dropped some great fighters. I thought he'd be able to drop Preston Parsons. But I did underestimate Preston Parsons. He definitely gained a lot of respect for me. Again, not the hardest hitter, but his pressure, his takedowns. I mean, he hit 7 of 11 takedowns in this fight. I mean, total strikes, 116. He was on fire. Great fighter, actually. Sorry, Preston Parsons. I thought you were trash, but you're actually not bad. All right, I'll admit that I'm wrong. You're a man to look out for in the future. Matthew Semelsberger, I mean, he's definitely a fighter you want to keep around. Give him another 2 fights or something. See how he goes. But 11-7 record isn't looking too good, you know. He drops another fight, 11-8. Drops another fight, 11-9. Like, Matthew Semelsberger needs to step his shit up, learn some new things in training. He just needs to learn to get those strikes together and finishing instinct. But I thought this would be a clear KO win for Matthew Semelsberger. I was completely wrong. So at this moment on the card, I was 4-2, not going terrible. But then we move on to the main event. Moving on to the first fight on the main card, Andrei Arlovski versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. Now I'm going to say it again, I don't think Waldo Cortez Acosta is that good. I really don't think he's that good. I mean, you look at his career and you look at the people who have knocked out Andrei Arlovski recently, and you just compare it to Waldo Cortez Acosta. Like, Don'Tale Mayes was able to finish Waldo Cortez Acosta. Don'Tale Mayes, you know. And Waldo Cortez Acosta wasn't, you know. I thought after his last fight, he would be able to get a second round KO. That was my official prediction. But Andrei Arlovski made this a close fight, a really close fight. And it was only because Andrei Arlovski started to slow down that Waldo Cortez Acosta won this fight. But if we're going over total strikes, Andrei Arlovski outstriked him, had more significant strikes, mainly to the body and to the legs. You know, as we see here, Waldo Cortez Acosta was landing more to the head. But I reckon Andrei Arlovski should have mixed in a takedown here. We haven't really seen Waldo Cortez Acosta really challenged in that space. I would have liked to see Andrei Arlovski challenge him a little bit there. I said I wouldn't be surprised if Andrei Arlovski beat him by decision, and it almost happened. But I did expect Waldo Cortez Acosta to get him out of there. Ultimately, I don't think Waldo Cortez Acosta is that good, and when he gets another step up like he did against De Lima, I think he's going to lose again. I think he's got a lot of holes in his game. And this man was taunting Andrei Arlovski. You fucking dog, bro. Andrei Arlovski, legend. Don't go out there taunting him. You're barely fucking beating him. Anyway, we move on. Phil Hawes versus Bruno Ferreira. You know what I got from this fight that I already thought, but it was just that like replanted in my head. Phil Hawes is a great fighter, right, with a trash chin. And it's so sad for him, because if he had a better chin, like if he had a chin like fucking old Tony Ferguson or something like that, Nate Diaz chin, he'd be a tank. Like, I think he would. I don't think he would have lost most of his fights he's lost, because he goes so well and then he gets beaten, gets KO'd. And honestly thought, when the fight started, I honestly thought Phil Hawes was going to win this fight. But then Bruno Ferreira started to have his moments, and Bruno Ferreira finished him, put him to sleep. Bruno Ferreira, somebody to look out for, but you can definitely see where the holes in his game are. And I think that's a lot of... he has to improve a lot too, but he's got the power for this weight division, and definitely somebody to look out for. If he didn't lose his last fight, he'd be on a 3-fight winning streak, looking very impressive. But that did sort of put a pause on him. I wonder what they're going to do with him next, boost him up the rankings a little bit. But who hasn't knocked out Phil Hawes at this point? Like, honestly, who hasn't knocked him out? So join the club, buddy. But overall, pretty good fight. Bruno Ferreira looking good. The Hulk, as they call him. Bro, this fight just made me sad. This fight did make me sad. Ricky Simone versus Mario Batista. Another fighter, Mario Batista, who I doubted. I'm really paying for those doubting. And when they win, like, they win kind of dominantly. Like you see here, 30-27 on 2 scorecards. I thought Ricky Simone was going to bring more. I thought Ricky Simone would be able to get him down a little bit more. You see here, 2 out of 13. I also didn't expect Ricky Simone to fade in that last round. But I don't know how Ricky Simone dropped the first round, because he did drop him at the end of it in a round that was very close. So that was a little bit sus, you know. I agree with 38-39. I mean 28-29, sorry, but 27-30. Don't know if I agree with that. I reckon Mario Batista definitely won the last 2 rounds, so it doesn't really matter. But, you know, I kind of thought it would depend on the final round. And Ricky Simone fucked up that final round. Like, he got gassed and Mario Batista put on that pressure. I didn't really know Mario Batista really had that pressure too. Like, really had that pressure in that final round. But he looked good. He looked a lot better than his last performance. I was kind of doubting him off his last performance. And Ricky Simone's looked good. Like, Ricky Simone looked better against Song Yadong. And Song Yadong, I hold him as like a god. He's good. Give him a few more years. I wouldn't be surprised if he's champion. There you go, little champion prediction. But, you know, he looked trasher in this fight than he did against Song Yadong. And I know he got knocked out against Song Yadong. But still, when he didn't get knocked out, he looked better. I don't think he looked the greatest. You see here, total strikes, 118-52. 2 out of 13 takedowns landed for Ricky Simone. Mario Batista, clear win. I still don't think he's the best, but he's definitely better than what I thought. Ricky Simone didn't look the best that fight at all. Next up, my man Jim Miller. Can we just get a round of applause for Jim Miller? Like, Jim Miller, fucking, I'm happy for him. I'm not even an old like fan of the sport. Like, I only really started watching like 3 years ago now, 2 years ago. So I didn't really see the Jim Miller prime. But, you know, coming in as a bit of a later fan, I've seen Jim Miller. Seen how he just keeps tanking on. And, you know, this was a close fight. I did think Gabriel Benitez was looking good. You know, he was holding his own. I think Jim Miller was definitely losing that 3rd round until he got the neck crank. I'm surprised Gabriel Benitez tapped. But I guess you never know unless you're really in there how bad a submission is. It's like the tightest submissions could be not very tight. And then like submissions that you wouldn't expect are the ones that might actually get you to tap. But, you know, Jim Miller keeps on tanking on 37-17. Get him on UFC 300 now. Put him against Bobby Green or something. I don't know. Put him against somebody who... Just rebook that fight. Jim Miller, Bobby Green, UFC 300. Bobby Green, icon in the sport. Jim Miller, icon in the sport. Winnable fight for Jim Miller now, am I wrong? Like, the first time that fight came around, I thought Bobby Green would beat him. But now I'm probably leaning towards Jim Miller. I think he could do it. But big up Jim Miller. Again, round of applause. Love Jim Miller. Gabriel Benitez didn't look terrible. Good fighter in himself. Respect to both men. We move on to the main event. Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. I just got to say it. I don't think Johnny Walker looked good in this fight. And not to take away anything from Magomed Ankalaev, but I just think Johnny Walker didn't look very good this fight. Like, he came out... I don't know, man. I just didn't like his game plan in this fight compared to the first fight. I feel like... I don't know what he was doing. I think he was trying to throw him off, but then he didn't start following it up with strikes or anything. He was just kind of like kicking. I wanted to see his hands going a little bit more, because I think that's where he's really dangerous. He just didn't look the best. He started off the fight throwing tricks, just fucking crazy shit as he does, but it was a lot less planned compared to how he has been since he's came back on his little streak. This fight, he looked more like the old Johnny Walker. He looked more like the old Johnny Walker. And Magomed Ankalaev got him. You know, got him on the feet, KO'd him. I did say Johnny Walker by round 3 KO, but as the second round started, I didn't see that happening anymore. I seen, you know, maybe he does do something, but Magomed Ankalaev was in control of that fight. Great pressure from Magomed Ankalaev. I think this needs to be spoken about more. I think one of Magomed Ankalaev's best weapons is his pressure. He's just pressure, but it's strategic pressure. It's not stupid pressure, and Johnny Walker didn't like it. Magomed Ankalaev, I don't want him at the top of the light heavyweight division, but he is. What's next for Johnny Walker? I don't really know. And for Magomed Ankalaev, he arguably does deserve a title shot, although you could give him another fight. I know that's unfair, but, you know, I think light heavyweight's going to be a little bit caught up for a little bit. I think you got Jamal Hill coming back, and Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill, and all those funner matchups, you know, Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira. People are going to be excited, but are they going to be as excited as Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill? I don't know. I just don't know. But anyway, Magomed Ankalaev gets it done by KO. Looked good, looked impressive, showed his power on the feet. Johnny Walker, sucks to see him take another loss, you know, but it is what it is. Anyway, guys, as always, have a good one, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Peace.
Give me 5 minutes, I'ma pull up with like 5 niggas. Give me 5 minutes, girl, I'ma be right with you.